many of you used the internet in the last 1 day? Anyone not used the internet in the last 1 day? Can I see a show of hands? Good. Good. That's a good stat to have. You know, we take this internet thing for granted. I've got about 30 minutes to talk about the internet. It's going to be really hard, so I'm going to slice it up and talk about a variety of facets. Next slide, please. ICANN stands for the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. We oftentimes think of the internet as being nothing more than Google or Yahoo or Facebook or some other property that we're familiar with and we want to be spending a lot of time on. But in fact, there's an infrastructure behind the infrastructure that runs the internet. Things that we take for granted, for instance, like .com or .net or .org. Somebody made that happen. We oftentimes think about things like IPv4 or IPv6 addresses, and we assume that somebody made that happen. Have you ever considered, for instance, that the internet itself could be hijacked with cybersecurity? The whole internet can be taken hostage. Have you thought about that? So the question is, who takes care of those problems that you never think of because you take them for granted? And that corporation is the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. My name is Ashwin Rangan. I have the privilege of serving as the head of engineering and technology for the Internet Corporation. And I'm going to be taking you rapidly through a few slides, next slide please, about ICANN itself, the company. Our mission is to keep the unique identifier systems of the internet safe, secure, scalable. So safety and security are paramount for us. Imagine if your IP address were to regularly lead to a den of thieves. Or imagine worse yet, that your bank's IP address regularly led to a den of thieves, and you were depositing money regularly. Those are hijacks that do happen on the internet, and how we prevent those hijacks from occurring is a part and parcel of who we are. That's what we do to secure the internet from bad actors, to ensure that the internet scales. Now, why is that important? Keep going. Next slide, please. There are many, many organizations in the world that try to do what we're doing in conjunction with us, not as a replacement to us. There's the Internet Foundation. There's the W3C Foundation, founded by Tim Berners-Lee from the UK. There is the United Nations with its arms and legs, trying to do the right things by everybody around the world. There are things like the Internet Society or the Internet Governance Foundation. We're all trying to make sure that this internet thing that started without a center continues to be without a center, and without a specific government or a body taking the entire internet itself hostage. Next slide, please. So what do we do for the end user? We do a lot of things for the end user. Although you never hear about us, we're proud to be the Intel inside. That is a similar brand. We think of ourselves as an ingredient brand. We're behind all the things that you take for granted. But some of the things that we do are quite bizarre, actually. We secure the internet's root itself with security, the likes of which you wouldn't use in an enterprise. And we do it in a very public way. We actually televise it, we broadcast it, we show people how we secure the internet, but seeing how we secure it is not a means through which you can undo the securing that we did to the internet. So it's a very open and transparent process. You can see a video of it online. If you were to look for ICANN and The Guardian, the newspaper, The Guardian of the UK, you'll find video clips of some of the most interesting things that we do. They're our partner in reporting on many of the things that we're responsible for. So when we do these kind of things, they're there with their live camera and they roll it and capture it. In fact, within the next 6 months or so, we'll be rolling a key of the internet from an old anchor, a trust anchor, to a new anchor. We haven't done this in over 5 years. So when we do this, we fully expect a certain percentage of the internet to break. We fully expect some certain percentage of the internet to break. What is that certain percentage? We think it'll be about 1% of the internet. It'll break. And the moment it breaks, you'll know that it didn't work because you didn't roll the key. And it's as simple as making a call to your ISP and saying, dude, you gotta roll the key. And they'll do that. But some of them are asleep at the switch. You and I both know that. Next slide, please. ICANN, we have a fairly global presence. We operate in about 35 countries. We're not a large group of people. We're a highly technical and highly policy-oriented group of people, about 500 of us overall. Next slide, please. The internet is on the move. You think about it, there's about 4.5 billion people on the internet on any given day, give or take. And about 20 billion devices, give or take, are on the internet every day. And when you think of the internet, all of these have to have a unique address, because you're trying to make either a single unit, which is in the IoT space, or a single addressable component respond to a message. And that says there's an IP address. And if you want to memorize an IPv6 address, let me know and I'll give you a long string. And you can tell me whether you can remember that. Because you can't do that is the reason there's a domain name associated with every single address on the internet. We make those domain names possible. We wholesale them. And then retailers like GoDaddy make it available to you. Now, there's only 4,500 people on the internet, 4.5 billion people on the internet right now. And the world population is about 7.5, 7.75. Where are those people? Well, they're primarily in what we think of as the South and the East. The Southern Hemisphere and the Eastern Hemisphere. And when they come online, they're not going to be speaking English. And we're not going to be teaching them English either. So the question is, how do they get access to the same internet beast without knowing the Latin script? So over the last 5 years, our teams have taught the internet how to speak other scripts. Today, you can buy a domain name in the Arabic and enter it right to left. You can buy a domain name in Hindi for those from an Indian origin, and you can enter that left to right with the Devanagari script. You can speak to the internet in Tamil. You can speak to it in Chinese. A variety of languages are now capable of being parsed by the internet, even at the URL level, leave alone at what is displayed. Normally we think of enter the URL in English, I'll display it in whatever language you want. Well, if you don't know English and you don't have an English keyboard, you can't even get on the internet. We've taken care of that problem. Next slide, please. Now, most of the growth that's coming is actually coming in from Africa, Saudi Arabia, China, and India. Saudi Arabia today has internet penetration of 1.6 on a per capita basis. They have more internet drop-in connections by a factor of 60% more than their population. And it's continuing to grow. I don't know why every person there needs more than one, but we're seeing that it's not the IoT space, but it's actually addressable machines that are increasing monotonically outwards. Africa today has a population of 850 million people. By the year 2020, the most conservative estimate of population in Africa is 2.1 billion people. The most conservative estimate. The most generous estimate puts it at 2.6 billion people. That's 500 million people. Just wrap your brain around that 500 million number. That is 200 million more people than the entire United States. It's 100 million more people, give or take, than the entire North American continent. That's the delta between the low and the high number there. These are huge numbers. And these are young people who we are seeing, as a matter of regular routine, are trading food for the next iPhone. They would rather have less food, but they would like to see the iPhone X in their hand. We see that regularly with every release of the iPhone and every release of the Samsung Galaxy. We see the uptake where people are trading food for better technology. remarkable things are happening on the internet. Next slide, please. Top-level domain names are exploding. As I told you, we are the wholesalers of this. It started out with 22 of them 5 years ago. We now have 1,300 top-level domain names. If any one of you is a doctor, you can register a .doctor. Or if you're a realtor, you can have a .realtor. If you live in New York City, you can have a .nyc. If you live in Johannesburg, you can have .joburg. If you want to be stylistic, you can have .paris. If you own a Rolex watch and you want to register your particular watch, you can have .rolex. Apple will be launching their next suite of products using .apple. Marriott already starts all of their campaigns with .marriott. These are new things on the internet. Next slide, please. So, why do I say it's the best of times and it's the worst of times? Next slide. Next slide, please. The internet is centerless. There is no such thing as a center to the internet. My office is not the center of the internet. I do have a switch in my office that says on and off, but it doesn't do anything. You know, I can turn the internet off, right? You can't turn the internet off because it is centerless. It runs like any other machine does, with an on-off, except it is highly distributed. It is distributed in about 1,000 different locations around the world. You have to take the world out in order for the internet to stop working. And if you're a networking, you know that when you route a packet, it doesn't go to the closest whatever. It's not the closest switch, it's not the closest router. It uses a protocol, and it seeks a low-cost route, as it's called. And that depends on what else is running. Where is it running? How much of it is being occupied, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to take out the internet in the US, if you take out every location in the US, you could still have traffic in the US. Why? Because there are other points of presence around the world that'll make sure that your traffic is still getting transacted. We in ICANN are responsible for running a segment of it. About a third of this is run by my people, folks who work on my team. A third of these points of presence are run by our folk in data centers around the world. I think at last count it was 200 and something or the other data centers. The struggle is that we want to target business opportunities. And the one thing that we all have in common, no matter which company you represent, whether you're a buyer or a seller or a conduit in between, is that we're all running out of time. We want to do this quickly. So we constantly struggle to do this quickly thing without giving up on anything else. Next slide, please. These are all the things that we buy. These are all the things we want or must have. And it's just a sampling, right? I grabbed every icon I could in this category and I put it there. I'm only as good as the iconography there. They have more, I would put it there. Next slide, please. But the trend is very clear. Look at that. The demographics say that males, 6 to 4 females, are online. You're like 30 to 40, you're online all the time. If you're younger, you can't price away that machine from the youngster's hand. I look at my children, they don't know how to live without their iPhone. Their iPhone is an extension to their fingers. They wake up, the first thing that they do is to grab the iPhone, not to say good morning. And I look at them and say, could you say good morning? And they're like, good morning. Hey, to the machine, yeah? So it's remarkable what's going on. And no matter how we track it, no matter which demographic we track, it looks like the internet is where people are spending more and more and more time. Next slide, please. So what are these people doing? Well, they're trying to solve for cost of living. That's the first thing that people are doing. E-commerce, the gentleman before me talked about email, not email, e-commerce. You transact, you're willing to give up money so you get convenience. You don't want to park in a 10-acre Walmart parking lot and find your way halfway across the football field, not knowing what you're looking for, because the search cost is high in terms of time. I'm saying this after having served as CIO of Walmart, by the way. So I know exactly what I did because I also created Walmart.com. And by a yard, it wins every time, just for convenience. You can have comparison shopping. It's convenience. You're not just online, but you're comparing it with other merchants and saying, can I get it cheaper somewhere else? I have no loyalty to an online brand. I have loyalty to my need, and I'm willing to shop and find the lowest cost. Next slide, please. The next thing we do is look for quality of life. And how do we do this? We want to be smart. We want to be healthy. We don't want to memorize anything. We'll just look at Google. I want to know it now. I don't need to memorize it as long as I know how to get Google. I know how to find the stuff that I need. I want to be healthy. I want to compare myself with a cohort that's similar to me. People like me. Am I young? Am I old? Am I big? Am I small? Am I fat? Am I thin? Am I this? Am I that? You put it all together and say, how are people like me doing? And if on average I look like I'm somewhere at the middle of that bell curve, I say, good, I'm fine. It's okay. Or if I'm really sick, I look for people who are equally as sick as me and say, what are you doing? Right? That's how we now transact our life day to day. And we cultivate laziness. By golly, we'll cultivate a heck of a lot more laziness over the next 20 years. Why? Because there are these remarkable machines that are making us more and more and more lazy. I talked about Google, the machine. That made us lazy. Anyone here owns a set of Encyclopedia Britannica? Show of hands. Yeah? Not gonna happen, right? Your kids won't know what the hell you're talking about. You ask your parents, they knew exactly what that meant, right? How many own a Nest thermostat at home? About 10%. Guess what? After you set the Nest 3 times, it doesn't care about you anymore because it knows more about you than you know about yourself and your preferences. In my home, that damn thing takes over all my systems, all on its own, all the time, right? And that's just the beginning of what we will see. You know, we think of artificial intelligence as being this robot that looks like a humanoid walking around trying to be an assistant. That's not it, folks. Artificial intelligence starts as that dishwasher that gets programmed because it understands that setting 1 means I've got heavy duty loads in the dishwasher. That's AI. It's that washing machine, it's that dishwasher, it's that thermostat, it's that ADT control that you have at home. It's that OCO or Ring or whatever else you have for surveillance. That's artificial intelligence. And that makes you lazier because you say, that machine is taking care of me. Why should I pay any attention? Next slide, please. And the third thing we do is standard of living, right? Cost of life, quality of life, standard of living. How's the quality of my life? Sometimes when I look at the LA traffic, I say it sucks. But man, standard of living is pretty good, right? You can't trade this kind of weather for a lot of things. Standard of living is really good. Material well-being is pretty cool. You get access to the latest of stuff here. Next slide, please. So there are big business opportunities here, right? Because you just think about these 3 things that I talked about. Every one of those intersects that whole page full of things that we want and need and must have. So there are huge opportunities. But this is a room full of leaders. So what does that mean to us? It means that our intentions will shape the future that's to come. Every choice that every one of us in this room makes will have an arc into the future that will either result in something that's utopian or dystopian. Every technology that I talked about, whether it be e-commerce or robotics or machine learning, expert systems, blockchains, pick one, doesn't really matter to me. You can use it for war as much as you can use it for peace. That choice is ours. That choice is entirely ours. And this room full of people, as much as any other room full of people, has the great responsibility to make sure that we're making really thoughtful choices. Next slide, please. And it becomes really strange because increasingly we're living in this instant gratification world, right? Look at that. Instant gratification, 0 mile run. Runners on your mark, get set, go. Okay, come back, you got your t-shirts. My kids resemble that. They just want participation for anything. Right? Whether they win, lose, or draw, it doesn't seem to matter. Just give me a trophy and tell me that I'm a good kid. And everything's fine. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about this one last example, and then I'll leave you. This is a real example. I work with the World Economic Foundation, the WEF. And part of what we do is to look at the Internet of Things and try to conceive of the future. I work with another 30 executives around the world. And a meeting happened about 2.5 years ago, so this is a little bit of an old story, where a person from an unnamed German pharma company was in the room with us, and so was the CXO of a seed company, seed stock company in the US. It's suffice it to say that it's a very large private company, one of the largest private companies on the face of the earth. And the CXO of an extraordinarily large multinational earth-moving company, who shall also remain nameless. And I was facilitating this session, so I challenged them. I said, you know, IoT is about an outcomes economy. It's not about technology. And if I told you that you have no limits to thinking, and I told you that there were no boundaries, and I said, capture this moment, how would we think about doing something that's so radical, so different, that all of us will look back and say, man, I was in that room when we thought about that idea. It took about 45 minutes for many of the typical barriers to come down, as in, you're not American. No kidding. You don't look like me, you don't speak my language, but your English is passable. Yeah. You, the facilitator, you're not even from around here, are you? No, I'm not. I haven't dealt with you. I've heard about you, your company, but we've not had any direct dealings. Correct? We make it for everybody, really, everybody in the world. Yeah. You know, my company is the biggest company in earth-moving equipment. And some of our combines today, they don't have anybody. They work 24 hours a day. They don't need a human being. We've got remote control. We actually have it in Bogota, Colombia, so that the cost is low for monitoring these combines. Then it started to click. What if the three of us got together and did something? And I injected the idea of blockchains and smart contracts. I said, how about you guys come up with a smart contract so that we understand what's going on? Within a short 9 months, 3 facilitated conversations, they came up with a brilliant idea that is now in place. Industrial scale farming in the Midwest of the United States today is increasingly being handled by these 3 corporations, where Company A provides pesticides, Company B provides seed stock, and Company C provides earth-moving equipment, which is unmanned, but with IoT, both on board the machine and in the ground, providing real-time stats that are churned, analyzed, yield. I would therefore urge you not to think about what can it do for my company, but how can we impact the outcome? What result can we look for? And how do we forge something that is so out of the ordinary that we haven't even started to think along those lines? So, like I was saying, it's a real fork in the road, and it's up to us to figure out which way we go. With that said, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.